Hey everybody, day 8, Kensington Wine Market Whiskey Calendar 2022 edition. I'm joined again by Dave Worthington from That Boutique-y Whisky Company for a little bit of extra content. Dave, as always, thank you for joining us. And today,
lovely to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Seems like it's only been a couple of days or minutes or both. But we've got a 27-year-old Cameronbridge to talk to this time. What can you tell us about batch 4 of the Boutique-y Cameronbridge 27-year?
Again, let me just pop the cork on that one and get myself a wee dram.
I'll do the same, but from a much smaller bottle.
Yeah, we have your advent calendars, your holiday calendars a little bit bigger than ours. And yeah, obviously my calendar is bigger than yours.
Yeah, but you know what, Dave, what we can actually call it an advent calendar when we're describing it. We just can't refer to it as such in our marketing of it. So it is a whiskey calendar, but it is Advent. So it is a calendar to be enjoyed during Advent, I suppose we could say.
Advent. Yeah, well, this is also our 4th batch. It's a 27-year-old. We've had a few batches from 24, 27, 39. I think it's the oldest Cameronbridge. This one is a fairly biggish. Again, it's a grain distillery. It's a vatting of a couple of casks. 48.9% ABV, I think this one is. And Cameronbridge is the largest distillery in Scotland. It's huge. It distills some of the world's most famous spirits, including grain whiskey from Diageo's blended Scotch whiskies, Johnny Walker and Bell's, but it also makes vodka. Yeah, coffee stills, neutral, continuous. So it makes neutral grain spirit for Smirnoff vodka, and obviously the gins, which is just flavored vodka. They're Gordon's and Tanqueray gins. It is Diageo's sort of powerhouse grain distillery. So it provides the backbone of many of their blends. Mm-hmm. The distillery goes back, it's got quite a bit of a history, 1824, and is originally known as the Cameronbridge, 2 words. And in a long time ago, it became the very first Scotch distillery to produce grain whiskey in a continuous still. However, it wasn't the coffee still that was there at that time. This is a much more primitive version invented by Robert Stein. This is where Anais Coffee looked at Stein's invention and said, well, I could perfect this, I could make this better, and that's where the column still really came. And Robert Stein was John Hague's cousin, so there's all this sort of family link. It's also been known as the Hague Distillery in the past, named after the founder, John Hague.
And home also to, some might argue, failed experiment to make young grain whiskey appeal to millennials. If we'll remember back in those blue perfume bottles.
That's been really, really popular around the world. I mean, not necessarily amongst the whiskey, the serious whiskey drinkers, but it is bringing new people into the category. I mean, it was one of the only grain distilleries to have its own brand, Cameronbridge, and it's still available. You don't see it very often now, but it was always something. And if you read Ian Buxton's, I remember the first time I saw it was Ian Buxton's 101 Whiskies to Try Before You Die, and it's one I had to grab because it was in the book. You could buy it. It was cheap as chips. It was under 20 a bottle for a young grain whiskey. And it has survived, and I did find it online just the other day because I was talking about this whiskey not so long ago, to be honest. It is still around, but it's obviously a little bit more pricey now. But the distillery was given much greater prominence around 2000 when David Beckham's Hague Club came into fruition. Now, that was already around when we bottled our first ever batch of Cameronbridge, and so our label for that, we wanted to have a little bit of a play, and I don't know how to share my screen here.
Do I have to make? I might have not made you co-host yet, so let's remedy that, and then you can share your screen. You know what's funny, Dave? I think that the Hague Club phenomenon caught on in predominantly in Europe because I mean, I know amongst whiskey drinkers, it was a bit of a running joke for a while, but I don't think we ever saw it on this side of the pond.
Well, it's certainly huge over in Asia, and that's what I understand. It's very, very big in Asia, and wherever football is huge because of David Beckham, obviously. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a play on David Beckham. You know, they launched with much fanfare with David Beckham as a superstar. So we really wanted a sports superstar on our label. And so we found a Dr. Patrick Barry, who was, I think, the 8-time world champion of Tiddlywinks, and also the UK. I think he was 10-time UK champion. He's also a very eminent professor at Cambridge University. I've recently looked him up for talking about this the other day. He's won a further 2 world singles champions. So he's now 10 and 10 in the world and 10 in the UK as a national champion. So yeah, he's still right up there. He's lost it once. But
Dave, I have to interrupt and ask quickly, is this a televised sport in the UK?
Is this a what?
A televised sport? Like, will this be on Sky TV?
Well, I didn't even know people took it seriously. I thought it was always it's a sort of a child's game of flipping tiddlywinks around. I remember it as a kid. But yeah, I mean, Patrick jumped at the idea and thought it was a really good idea. I didn't know it was played seriously, and there were world championships. So yes, he stood up, and every label, as you know, it looks exactly like this, but there's little changes going on in the background. We've had a little play with the TW on there, which looks a little bit like the HC. There's lots of little things in there. So
you want to edge up to the line of people saying, "Is this going to get us sued?" But not cross it.
No, we definitely don't want to get sued.
No. Well, I love, you know, without looking at this, I mean, and I've not looked at the label story on this one previously. I think it's absolutely hilarious that there is a World Tiddlywinks Championship and champion. Because truly, who knew?
Yeah, well, it was a children's game a long time ago, and it sort of disappeared into obscurity, really. And the story that Oxford University say is that Cambridge University needed a sport that they could dominate because they weren't very good at rowing and the boat races. So that's when they sort of brought this back together. So it has really been Cambridge University's sport for decades. Yeah.
So Oxford has rowing and Cambridge has tiddlywinks is what I'm hearing.
Well, there's a boat race every year against the 2 universities on the Thames, and I guess Oxford win it a lot. I don't know. I don't really follow it. I must admit, I never went to either of the universities, and I don't follow the boat race. I really don't give a hoot.
Well, my 2 of my in-laws, my brother-in-law and his wife, were both postdocs at Oxford, and I can't wait to ask them if they were aware of Cambridge's prestige in the world of tiddlywinks, because I think that's just fascinating.
I guess they're closer to the River Thames, aren't they? Which is why they might go rowing a bit more.
They might have a bit more of an advantage there. So Dave, we haven't talked about the profile of the whiskey yet. I mean, this is classic 20-something grain whiskey. It's very clean and floral on the nose. There's some underlying sweetness and a little bit of fruit. The palate, I think, is where this really comes into its own.
Oh, it's really creamy, isn't it? It's really, really creamy.
Yeah, creamy, floral, nutty, some nice notes of almond, marzipan, little touch of burnt sugar in there as well too, and like candied orange. I remember back in the 80s, it was popular to candy orange slices and put them on cakes, and this kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's really buttery, a little prickle of spice coming through there, and it's quite. I say that oily nuttiness on the nose, and that fruitiness of some really fresh pineapple, not really almost sharp pineapple, not the really one that's gone a little bit soft. And
it's funny you say that about the pineapple, Dave, because one of the places I was going to go taste wise on this whiskey was carrot cake. I'm a huge fan of carrot cake. My mom would always make me carrot cake for my birthday, and I personally am one of those people who doesn't like it when people throw pineapple into carrot cake. And it's not to say that I don't like this, but I think that pineapple note was bringing me back to like carrot cake with a cream cheese icing, and maybe mistakenly a little bit of pineapple thrown in there for good measure.
That's really lovely. I must admit, I'm really enjoying this.
Mhm.
Now, this was actually day one in our advent calendar over here in the UK.
That's great. I mean, and interesting to see a little bit of a crossover in terms of Waltz, and that all makes perfect sense. And I'm proud to say we have both 50 mils and full-size bottles of this available. And the full-size bottles are, if I'm being honest, a steal. If I remember correctly, I think they're about $125 a bottle, which, you know, it is a grain whiskey, but at the same time, that's an incredible price.
It's a cracking little whiskey, absolutely. I don't think we've got any left over here.
Well, it's not easy to understand, or it's easy to understand why when the price on that is what it is. It's such a good buy. So Dave, you were saying before the oldest Cameronbridge you've done is a 39-year-old?
I think, yeah, 39-year-old was the oldest one we bottled a little while ago.
Well, if I remember correctly, and we were talking about distillery bottlings, I think Diageo did a 52-year-old. I have in my head Cameronbridge at some point in time, and it was part of one of their special releases one year. But I am confirming here that the Cameronbridge 27-year, it's a 500 mil, but it's 125 a bottle, which I think again is a great price for a 27-year-old whiskey. Dave, this is the second of a handful of whiskeys that the Boutique-y Whisky Company was kind enough to let us include in our whiskey calendar this year. I want to thank you for chatting with me about it tonight, and look forward to chatting with you about the next one that will come across in the whiskey calendar in a few days' time.
Hey, lovely to see you again. Cheers.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers.